Hey, are you wondering what homes are actually selling right now? Maybe what's happening with prices? I mean, are they up? Are they down? What's happening? I mean, days on market, is that being affected? Maybe inventory levels. I mean, is there more homes on the market now than there was last year? Well, if you're curious about any of those topics, stay tuned because this video will give you the answers. It's our monthly market update for the spring market in 2026. I'm Josh with the Lavic Home Team, and in this video, we'll be doing exactly that, covering our market update, homes that are selling right now. So there's a couple different places I like to look to find this information. One is some of the market reports that we look at from our local board of realtors and multiple listing systems. So here you can kind of see where our median days on market is way up, actually, up 6 from previous year. We're up to 16 days on market. Pricing, there does tend to be a little bit of a seasonal bump, as you may imagine in Wisconsin, right? We tend to see a little bit more sales activity, a little more interest in warmer months out of the year. So, January of this year, we're at $435 for our median price in Dane County. That's where this is, yeah, Dane County. And then, we're trending up a little bit, $447,900. My guess is we'll probably continue that trend, towards June, July, maybe get closer to that 460, 470 mark, and then it may come back down a little bit. So it's at least been the trends the last couple years, and I would kind of anticipate things staying pretty similar. So see, the most number of sales are happening in this 400 to 500,000 price range, right? 400 to 499. Majority of sales that were there, 366 in the month of February. And you can kind of see what else. Oh, this kind of breaks it down too. You can also see really good the seasonality, right? In terms of how many sales, right? 366 I said was in February, compared to January was at 315, and what our previous peak was in May of 2025, 732 sales. So sometimes people ask me, when is the best time to sell my home? And I think it really depends because it's really up to you. Even in January, 315 homes still sold, okay? So if you want to move for a job or an opportunity or life situation changes happen, right? There's still going to be homes that are selling, okay? Maybe just not as many as in May or June type of time frame. Right? So actually, I sold my personal house. My last house I sold in February. I've also gotten I got an accepted offer one year on Christmas. And, so homes are going to sell at all times of the year. It just kind of depends what's most ideal for you. So that's usually the tip I recommend to most people is, if you're thinking about selling your house this spring, great, that's fine. But ultimately, the best time is the right time for you and your situation because, luckily we're in a pretty strong market, a healthy market, as we'll dive deeper into today. But Madison is a pretty strong, robust market, which is why we've got one of the highest median sale prices in the state. And so, which is actually, let's go there next. So this looks at our median price by region. So this was in January, and 374,900 was the entire south central Wisconsin region. So it's like 7 or 8 counties, I believe, in south central Wisconsin. Compared to southeast Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Racine, Kenosha area, they're at about 325, compared to the west Wisconsin, it's going to be by like La Crosse, that kind of thing. Northeast, up near Green Bay, York County, that area, and to the north, pretty far north, northern Wisconsin, much more rural, much more homes at lower price points available up there. So similar in central, which is, closer to like Stevens Point in that area as well. So median price at 245. But our inventory is still fairly low, right? Statewide, we're down about 6.5%, still 3.1 months dropped to 2.9 months statewide. So I am seeing similar things just in Dane County, right? We've got fairly low inventory, right? Which you can see on this graph, right? You see months supply by price range, and you can see that 400 to 500 price point, which is, where the bulk of our home sales tend to occur, right? There's 217 active, but there were 148 sales per month is the rate of sale that they're happening. So, you can see there, we'll be sold out within less than 2 months if no new homes came on the market. That's kind of what inventory means. And when you talk about months supply of inventory, that's what they mean is like how many months would it take to sell out based on the current rate of sale, A little bit different, right? On the higher end, over $1 million price point, we're at 3.55 months. So definitely much closer to kind of that balanced market. Usually around like 4 to 6 months is considered more of a balanced market. So once you get up there, it definitely balances out. But in pretty much all the other price ranges, it's under, right around that 2 month supply. This I think is an anomaly. 6-month supply based on under 100,000. Well, this is single family and condos. There's only 2 active condos in that price range right now, and there's been 0 sales in the last 12 months. Sort of a small number to choose from, but which is why I think you see that number is slightly skewed, because it can be affected by just a low number of sales that would impact the month supply. Let's see, what else? Sometimes people ask me what's happening with interest rates, right? How is that affecting things? Well, mortgage rates right now, we're hovering at just right around 6% for 30-year fixed. Maybe a week or two ago, it was just under 6%. For most of the past year, we've been just over 6%, closer to 6.5%. And you can kind of see that even just from this graph, right? This is on Freddie Mac on their website. You can kind of see where it is throughout most of the year. Back the peak was close to 7% for a 30-year fixed. That was in May, but otherwise kind of trended a little bit down, but mostly in that between 6 and 6 for at least the second half of the year. 5.5% right now for a 15-year. So if you're able to do a much shorter term or want to do a shorter term loan instead of a 30-year, you can get a little bit lower interest rate on that as well, in my experience, but definitely is an option if you're looking to pay off that mortgage at a quicker pace. So what's interesting to me is I look at a lot of different places to get this data, and this is from Wisconsin Realtors Association. This previous one that we looked at, this was at the local multiple listing, South Central Wisconsin multiple listing system. So that's where this data comes from. Some of the other data we can look at, this is the Realtor Property Resource. So this is a tool that realtors have access to, and kind of here you can see, like I said, we're more of still in the seller's market. I find it interesting because median prices are all similar, slightly different, and I think it's probably mainly based on when they choose to capture the data, publish it on the site. So, but it is kind of interesting, and you kind of see the trends. They're all pretty similar, right? We've been hovering in this 440 to 460 kind of price range for quite a while now that I've noticed. This is just overall market conditions, like I was telling you before, where the market conditions in the Madison area are actually pretty good, right? We're seeing GDP growth at 3.2%. We are seeing job growth is, right around just negative 0.9%. So, job growth is slightly declining, but not dramatic. We are seeing wages start to go up, right? Wages going up 5.6%, and the unemployment rate is fairly low, 2.2%. So that's good as well. So I think overall, these are healthy indicators as far as economic conditions. And I think that helps contribute to, Madison area being a desirable place to live, right? Our economic conditions are pretty good. There's opportunities here for people to get good jobs and be able to afford housing. Shortage ratio, I think, is another interesting thing to look at, right? If you've been paying attention, you may have heard there's a housing shortage, and that's why, we've had low inventory for quite a while, actually, several years. And part of that has contributed to our rise in prices. So the main solution is to try to build new housing, right? More homes for people to actually live in, so they have a place to live. So we did see kind of an uptick in terms of housing construction permits, but then we kind of came down a little bit, right? Builders kind of pulled back and decided to sit tight for a number of new construction housing permits. So you've probably noticed a number of multifamily properties being built, and that's true, but this is also, that was in the last year, that was up 52% from the previous year. Right? You're probably seeing some of those big multifamily buildings being built now. That'll definitely add more housing units to the area, which is why, right, we saw a rise and then they typically fall, right? That's typically how markets work. Over time, they're going to always kind of seek equilibrium, which is what you want, actually, because if they are too high or too low for too long, then that's usually when you get a major correction. That's when it can be kind of scary. So, moderate number of sales, moderate pace of growth, I think is healthy. I think we're, prices, if we see price stability kind of just staying put for this year, that's mostly my prediction. I don't think we'll see a major rise, but I think, having our low inventory is still kind of contributing to keeping prices high. If we do see a spike in inventory, then, that may have some downward pressure on prices, but right now there's still adequate demand for the number of people that want to buy a home. That is this spring market update, and I hope you found this video helpful. If you're curious to the spring real estate market in the Madison area and want to talk more about it, feel free to reach out to myself or one of my team members, and we'd be happy to set up a time to talk to you further about the real estate market in the Madison area and other areas around Wisconsin, and hope you're having a great day. Again, my name is Josh. I'm with the Logic Home Team.